continuing now with my discourse about how to correctly read guidance, whether it's movement and how we move physically in a physical planet and universe, and what works for movement and what allows us to take an intention that we have and bring it to fulfillment through our bodies, through our movement, and the deep foundation that we establish for that guidance, that we go through like a training period as we learn from birth to at least to walking, and then beyond in the different physical skills that we learn and master, and that we have deep in our body like a sense of a reference. There's like a reference to what is safe and what is, when we have the safety to move and know the pathway, and when we're in that alignment, in that pathway, and when we're just moving alone in our environment. I mentioned that this practice of contact improvisation dance, where we now take an individual awareness of that and how we move in our body, and we join with another person with hopefully their awareness, and we learn how to communicate and move together as a team, but with no real person leading. It's like our whole body functions as a team, and there's really nobody in charge. Yes, our brain is actively sort of overseeing, but every voice, every part of the body is communicating. It's a two-way communication that's happening. So there's feedback all the time. And when we dance with another partner, we have our own internal feedback, our kinesthetic wisdom and knowledge about how it is to operate physically moving on the planet, in the gravitational field. And then we have, when we join our center with another person, both people not just relying on the ground, but co-relying on each other. And how does movement then evolve from that is mutual and enjoyable for both people? And it's almost like this third way happens, that's a yes and a yes, and here we go together. The metaphor, I don't know if it even really needs contact dance to create this metaphor I'm trying to or this parallel I'm trying to describe, but that we have this foundation in our bodies, the way our bodies work and interact with gravity and surfaces and physical forces. And it's a no-brainer. It's almost like when you learn to drive a car, at first it takes a lot of attention to figure out, if I turn the steering wheel this far, the car goes that far. And it takes a lot of sort of focus and feedback and practice to ingrain that, to land that in our bodies, to the point where most of us that have driven for some time hardly even pay attention anymore. We can have a conversation while we drive. We can, all kinds of stuff can happen, and we have enough patterned ways of knowing how to drive a car that they're kind of on autopilot, unless something comes up that we need to attend to. So we trust our bodies, basically. We trust ourselves to know, like, if I step onto something that I thought was going to be, I check, is it water or is it earth? And if it's water, I'm going to react one way, and if it's earth, I'm going to prepare myself and react another way. And that's a really solid, known body of understanding, the feedback. Now, when it comes to how to choose for ourselves, like this very personal journey that each one of us is on in this life, we have information that comes in from other people and other experts and sources and teachers and parents and siblings and bosses, you name it. There's a lot of input that comes that way that's can be information. And it's how then do we respond to that? What meaning does it have for us? And how do we, with that information, find what's right for us and what's supportive for our own personal journey? And as I said earlier, our culture does its damnedest to teach us how to be subject to someone else's desires for our journey. Most of us have been taught how to please others and put them first, and obey the system and don't make waves or whatever. There's different or go out and get it and push all these kinds of so much advice, depending on who you talk to or who's the expert or who you trust. And my contention is that there's something inside of us, in the same way that our bodies know how much pressure to push into our foot to take a step. Our bodies have an inner capacity, ourselves have an inner capacity to actually know. And that so many of us, myself for years, are or were so confused about, first of all, that it is my responsibility and my freedom to make my own choices. And secondly, well, how the hell do I make those choices? Like, what do I listen to? And when we're moving our physical bodies, we have the laws of physics and very physical, dense feedback. And when we're making spiritual or personal movement, we have vibrational feedback. And the way we read that is through our emotions. And how we interpret our emotions is key. It's easy to have an emotion of fear and think, oh, I shouldn't do this, it's wrong or bad for me. Well, that's a little premature. It is important to listen to the emotion. Fear. Interesting information coming into my system. I was getting ready to do something and I felt a little forward into it and I recoiled. What it's telling me is not that to do that thing is the wrong thing, but it is telling me to do it in that moment is wrong and not going to serve me. Because until the fear becomes enthusiasm, then yeah, in that moment, that's not a supportive choice for me. And the fear, the emotion that I'm naming an emotion, started initially as a thought. I want to do this thing. Oh, but I'm not ready. So the oh, but I'm not ready goes by really fast. Then there's a sensation in my body. A tightening of my stomach. Ooh, I'm not ready. And then if I want to name it, I'm going, oh, I'm afraid. And the next level, so now what did that fear mean? It means that I believed I'm not ready. And as long as I believe I'm not ready, it's true. The idea here is to actually pay attention to our emotions in a way that they become sort of neutral and just carriers of information that we can inquire deeper about. So I got off on a bit there, kind of depth there. There isn't like a wall we bang into when we feel afraid. I mean, it's not as physical as falling on your face because you tripped, but it does feel in the body like an impact. And that is something to pay attention to, but understand what the message is there. And it's personal. There's a general way to interpret, but also a very specific personal for myself. Why am I thinking I'm not ready? Why is that even, like, how could I become ready? You know? Because if I have a desire, it's legitimate, always, and am I blocking myself because I think it's wrong or bad or whatever judgment I have, or someone else will think it's wrong or bad, or I'll lose status, or it'll bring shame, or all the noise we've learned to pay more close attention to than, oh, me, my interpretation, my need. What do I need? I feel this. What is it that I need to feel safe and enthusiastic about moving forward? And I am theorizing that in this practice of contact improvisation dance, we can learn even more sort of directly what it feels like to hit an impasse and then soften and wonder which way can we go. It's a more impersonal kind of, and very like environmental. The environment doesn't say, well, I don't know, this person's coming, so I don't think I'm going to hold them up when they take a step here. It's, it's reliable and neutral and impartial. And there's something in that impartiality that releases me from social conditioning, and allows me to see this as just information for me. And I've worked with people who, for instance, just couldn't lean and trust by leaning their weight into another person. They could do it to a wall, but not another person. And that in the actual experience, when they've trusted me enough and I've invited them to lean and they actually commit and lean and feel safe, something shifts. Like, oh, this is possible. It's possible to trust another person. But I feel it the whole way. I don't just fall on them. I slowly, like reach and sense and reach and sense and reach and sense, and can trust my own inner knowing and trust whatever time and feedback and testing I need to be able to fully commit. And it's my contention that having that experience in this physical realm offers us, when we have a new experience, it offers us a new experience, not just in the movement or even movement with another person, but within ourselves, our own formula, our own possibility, how to get from the not of something, the not, N-O-T, the stuck, to the flow. At any rate, I'm incredibly grateful for the practice of contact improvisation that I've been doing for over 20 years with hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people, often bringing brand new people into the practice as a self practice. Can I stay relying on myself while I'm engaging with another person to the point where I really know who I am and what I'm offering, and I don't get confused about what's coming back? I can feel myself on the ground enough to know if or not what's coming back to me is something that supports me. And if I can do that physically and with another human being, which has all of this extra social, emotional, relational ideas and conditioning around, then it just makes it so much clearer and more easy for me to do it within my own being. Just as I'm noticing when I come up against a limit and how to kind of ease back and feel into myself and get clear and take incremental, experimental sort of investigations to find, here's where the opening is, here's where it's supportive. Well, that was fun to record. I don't know if I made my point, if I even needed to. So I said some stuff that was important to me, and maybe it's somewhat important for you as well. I hope so.